and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. A wave of protests against President Aleksandar Vučić kicked off late last year after 15 people died when a railway station roof collapsed in the city of Novi Sad in November. Prime Minister Vučević has stepped down to stop the protests. The President of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, said that there will be no transitional government after the resignation and that authorities need to quickly decide whether to form a new government or hold elections in a little over 2 months. What is the trigger for these demonstrations? Who is really behind them? And how does this event fit with Serbia's historic and future trajectory? Well, to unravel this complex package, we're joined by Nataša Vučković, Director of the Center for Democracy Foundation and a Serbian politician. Hello, thank you very much for joining us, Nataša. Pleasure. So let's start with the President's latest pronouncement that there will be no transitional government and a decision on a new election will be made shortly. What do you make of that statement and what's behind it?
Yesterday, the Prime Minister resigned, and according to our Constitution, in that case, once the Parliament adopts the resignation, then the constitutional way is very, very simple. Either the President would organize meetings in order to have a new government in 30 days, or after 30 days, if there is no government, then the Parliament will be adjourned and the new elections will be called, for which we have some 45 days, meaning that in that case, the elections would be somewhere in between Easter and the 1st of May. So that's the constitutional way. Regarding the transitional government, in the opposition circles and among some intellectuals that support the demonstrations, the students' protests and the civic protests, there is a demand that a transitional government is formed whose function would be actually to arrange that the next elections are without all those limitations and irregularities that we have faced in the past.
Well, that's a reasonable expectation from protesters, isn't it? I mean, does President Vučić expect the protests to end simply because he's promised a decision in 30 days without making any concessions towards a demand for, a fair and free election?
The demonstrators, the students' protests don't focus on elections. They focus on institutions and the rule of law. They demand actually that the judiciary fully takes and fulfills its role in bringing all those responsible for the big tragedy in Novi Sad to justice. That's mainly the demand of the students' protests that started really as an authentic movement of young people wanting to have more rule of law and more efficient and democratic and accountable institutions. Regarding the transitional government, the question is if the transitional government is supposed to bring some new laws and regulations about the elections. The question is how it can do it with a very big majority that the political party of President Vučić has in the parliament at this very moment. So the question is what and how actually functional and efficient this transitional government could be, and how actually the majority in the government, in the parliament, would accept such a solution. At the moment, we cannot foresee how the protests will go on and at which moment they're going to end. Students seem to be very decisive that they would continue their demands and their protests until all their requests are filled. So we will see how this will go on.
Understood. Although I suspect that the protesters are linking rule of law with governmental influence as it currently exists, and yes, that's
exactly
a question which they will have to face and address. Now, generally, how would you characterize the politics of Serbia? I mean, President Vučić has been in power since 2017. How would how would you place the political scene currently, both internally and externally, for example, in terms of its relationship, Serbia's relationship with Russia and Serbia's relationship with the European Union?
Yes, well, the present government in the last 12 years, of the rule of President Vučić and his party, it says that, well, the strategic goal of Serbia is to join the EU and at the same time preserve good relations with other of its friends in the international arena, meaning primarily Russia and China. And of course, I mean, on the other side, the United States of America. With the fact is actually that due to the lack of significant advancement in the area of the rule of law, the accession negotiations with the European Union have been actually stopped in a way 2 years ago, because since then no negotiation chapter, no cluster has been opened, and actually in many areas that there is no advancement on that road. So that is one part of the story. At the same time, the enthusiasm for the European integration process has been in a way reduced due to the lack of advancement on that road, and also there is a very high percentage of people that are in a way disappointed by the continuous postponing of enlargement on the side of the European Union. And so there are a lot of people that think that, we will never be a member of the European Union, which of course reduces the strength of this transitional vehicle, which is actually the accession process. And I think that Vučić and his party use that sentiment, this lack of enthusiasm, so in order to also develop other narratives. The question regarding the Serbian relation with Russia are now considered within, of course, the war in Ukraine, and to which extent actually Serbia aligns with the common foreign and security policy of the European Union. Serbia has not imposed sanctions on Russia. At the same time, it has supported in a couple of ways Ukraine through direct aid and so on. So the question is to which extent actually it will align with its European interlocutors and partners, because actually Serbia depends economically very much on the European Union in the sense of export and foreign investments and so on.
So what is your view of where this government will eventually land in terms of those relationships?
Well, as I said, there are both sides, even within the government. You have voices in the government that strongly advocate for for Serbia joining the European Union, and also by this incorporating all European values within the Serbian society and the Serbian institutions and the state. And at the same time, there are other voices. And in the last European Commission reports on Serbia, it has been stated, as it was stated last year, that Serbia has actually to develop a more pro-European, direct, positive narrative about the process of accession and the process of incorporating all European values within its society. That is something that has been reiterated by the European Commission and the European partners.
Understood. Okay, so one of the issues, of course, that the protesters in fact, the key issue is that of corruption that is carried on within the Serbian ruling elites. Now, clearly, that is something that the European Union will be taking into consideration, will it not, in its deliberations on accession for Serbia. On the other hand, there has been an increase in energy for getting Balkan states, including Serbia, into the European Union, starting at the end of last year. What is it that makes the EU so keen to get Serbia and other Balkan countries into the European Union, despite the allegations or accusations of corruption that exist there? And what should the EU do about that?
Well, corruption is a big problem, and you know, the civic movements and the opposition parties continuously demand that more severe measures against corruption are taken, and that is a demand, you know, that lasts for many years now, and it is also part of the crucial chapter 23 within the European accession negotiations. You know that the strategy and the concrete results in struggle against corruption are actually undertaken. And that is a very big impediment, really, within the society.
You say concrete results, so the question is, and yet this Novi Sad railway station cost 5 to 6 times more than it should have, and even then the quality of the workmanship was such that the roof collapsed, killing 15 people. I mean, that doesn't sound as though corruption has been dealt with.
Well, yes, but it is actually upon the institutions to determine to which extent actually the authorities have misused their competence, and to which extent actually the professionals, I mean the engineers and all other experts, have not been listened to in the process of constructing it and so on. And of course, how the tenders, how the contract, how everything has been actually concluded and implemented. It is upon, of course, the prosecutor's office and finally the court to determine this. But the demand is very clear. The citizens want to know what happens with their money and what happens with the you know, all the tenders, all the construction sites, because construction industries is flourishing in Serbia, and the question is to which extent actually there is corruption in all those projects. So the government will actually have to respond to those citizens' demands to take very no matter whether this is going to be a new government of the SNS or other parties, but that is a clear priority.
Well, we look
Serbia.
forward to that issue being addressed. Unfortunately, we're going to have to end it there, Ms. Vučić, Vučković, I beg your pardon, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for your analysis. Have a good day. And that's all from us in this episode of World Talks. Goodbye.